up? What's up? We are back at the Behind the Scenes Bella podcast. I am your host, Kalai Shireen, and again, we have another amazing episode with another amazing guest. Before I introduce this man, I'm telling you, he is like a mogul in his own regard. Like, do you know, we highlight so many people behind the scenes of other people's success. We talking about this is a giant right now that we about to introduce. Somebody who actually helps other people pioneer their careers and actually make staples and just produce so many great projects. Everything that you see and know and love is already somebody great behind that project. And this is one of the powerful people that are behind the scenes in the industry and are hands-on with a lot of the artists that you guys know and love. Okay, so the guest that I'm about to introduce, and y'all know I read the script because it's my show and I do what I want to do. This man is so amazing. He's so dynamic. His name is Mr. Chuck Lane Jr., not the second, okay, not the third, but Chuck Lane Jr. Don't play with it, period. He is from DC, okay, neighbor to my city, Philadelphia. He is here in Atlanta, Georgia. He has worked with so many different celebrities. I'm going to give him an opportunity to speak on who he is, because the way I feel about it is like he has so much going on. I don't even want to mess up his whole presentation and not give it the glory that it deserves. So without further ado, I need y'all to clap your hands and put it together for Mr. Chuck Lane Jr. Okay?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes.
My only gripe is I'm the only Chuck Lane. No, I'm just kidding. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to my pops.
Ain't nobody else like him. Look.
And native, I think you said it all. You know, native of Southeast Washington, D.C. Shout out to the South Side. Born and raised there my whole life, proud Washingtonian. And I'm just excited to be here.
Yes.
It's the first Philadelphia native I done sat down with that
Really?
ain't an Eagles fan. You know what I'm saying? I got a lot
I
of
thought
love
you about to say
for
period. I'm about to say really.
you good money. Once you told me you weren't really into football, we was good. But when if you just said, oh, I'm an Eagles fan, I'd have been like, bro, you got to reschedule me, bro.
The interview over.
Yeah, interview's
See,
over.
y'all, I couldn't even do it.
Guaranteed.
But you know what? I hear y'all. He is a big Leo, big
All
lion,
day.
big energy in the building. You feel me? This guy right here, y'all know I'm a Libra, so I love Leos. We always have so much fun on the show. So Chuck, like I said, I thank you for being here. Tell us like what you are doing right now behind the scenes. I want to kind of talk about what you're doing right now, but I'm also going to delve into how you got to where you are. But tell us what you're doing right now.
All right, so that's amazing. I can't say it enough. I appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you. So for me, I just actually concluded working alongside Jacqueline Carr and her whole team.
I love
on
her.
the You Will Win Conference 2023. Kind of working behind the scenes, working with all of the likes of Charles Jenkins, Reginald Sharp. Man, just a lot of other big names. I can't remember everybody that was there. You got to forgive me
because he be doing big things. He like with
it's
everybody.
still a blur, but I've had the opportunity to also tour along with I've toured with Maverick City Music.
I love
on
Maverick
their first
City.
tour alongside Lecrae. It's been a lot, like working with the likes of other different radio personalities, television personalities. So it's been a really, really dope ride. You could have never told me coming from Southeast DC that I get the opportunity to be in some of the rooms I'm able to be in.
I can't imagine. First of all, Maverick City, shout out to Gyra, one of these songs that's like amazing to me. My son put me on a song and I was like, what? Are you serious? He's like, no, Mom, you got to get with this group.
Oh, they're amazing. So to their defense, like I'm gonna be all the way real. Like you got like church, and then you got like white worship, right?
Oh, white worship.
I had no idea that they were as big as they were,
right?
Until I went on tour with them.
Oh
so
my gosh.
We was out there, and it's like COVID, like pre-COVID, and it's like thousands of people, and I mean every tour date was like sold out. It was like foreign to me. Like people wasn't worrying about COVID or none of that. Like guaranteed you're gonna get sick if you rub elbows. Like they wasn't worrying about nothing. Like, but the presentation, the way they did it was just. It was amazing, but the dopest part was they were just regular people once the show was over. Yeah. Like it was just really, really cool.
They got another group like that. They sang Oceans. I can't think of
Hillsong.
Hillsong. Yes, Hillsong. They got that same kind of vibe to them too. That's what's up. So I know, like I want to know especially behind the scenes. We highlight everything behind the scenes here. So starting out in your career, tell me how it was coming from DC, making your way. Like, I don't know if you was 13, 16. When did you start? How did you find that passion that I want to help other people execute their dreams?
So I actually started at about 10 years old.
I knew you was young.
A lot of people don't do.
I knew you was young.
A lot of people don't know this, but I used to do music. And so I started with one of my mentors, man. He used to work for BET. Shout out to Jason, man. I always try to give him his flowers.
Yeah.
He's single-handedly responsible for the man that you see today.
Wow.
And so he was a BET producer at the time. And I remember just going up to him in the hood. And I was like, hey, bro, can you write me a song? And at the time, he was kind of at the height of his career. So he said, I got you. And usually in the hood, most dudes would say they got you, and you
never get got.
But in his case, like, he was a man of his word. He came back to me about 3 months later, and he was like, "Yo, I got that song." And so for me, the only stipulation was like, "All right, we gonna do this, but you gotta keep your grades up in school." Like, he was an avid, I dare not say education person, but he was big on making sure that you had the knowledge to go along with the stuff you was talking about on your record.
Right.
So he wrote the record, we recorded it, and the rest was history. We did about 3 records, and then after that he said, all right, I ain't gonna write for you no more. Side note, Drake, I'ma own the fact that I had a ghostwriter for my first 3 songs, but after that, I was on my own.
Listen.
I was on my own. And so from there, he introduced me to media and television. He started letting me work the games. He used to commentate for the University of District of Columbia. Shout out to the Firebirds. And he would let me commentate the games in his absence. And it just went from there. Like, it just developed. I developed a love for it from there. When we would do live events, or if we were doing, he was involved in theater and plays. So when we would go out and do those, he would have me working behind the camera, shooting his plays.
Yeah.
Anything he was doing theatrical or like just with the arts, he would have me involved.
Getting that exposure.
And it just struck up a love from there. Like, and music continued to grow. And I did music until a certain point. But it was like, once I got in this media space and I saw what it exposed me to, I was like, oh, it's up from here.
Yeah. Wow. So what was your first big deal? Like, what was your first major deal where you was like, I arrived, like, I made it, like, or you felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Well, to be honest, like, I don't ever really feel like that. Ooh. Like, I look at every opportunity for what I can give versus what I could get.
See, there we go.
And I think that, but if I had to pinpoint like one example, as a music artist, it was when I had the opportunity to open for Ernest Pugh. And at the time, he had a record called "I Need Your Glory."
Listen.
And they called me and they was like, "Yo, can you open for him?" And to get the opportunity to open for such a big artist at that time, it was just really, really cool.
I can imagine.
I remember him coming up to me afterwards. I had on like this military green jacket, and he was in the Army, and he was like, man, I like that jacket, man, but aside from that jacket, man, as far as your gift, like, I think you got it. Because I was always one of them artists that I didn't really care about. Like, I wanted you to not just be able to play my music, but pray my music. So when you took the music away, I wanted you to be able to be like, man, what was he actually saying?
Yeah.
And then being able to refer that back to something that eventually would change your life. And so that was the big opportunity, or that was the first big one that I had the opportunity, was when I was able to open for him. Another time in my childhood, I was able to perform with the late great, or in front of the late great Chuck Brown.
Okay.
And then present him with the Lifetime Achievement Award. That was really, really dope, because Chuck Brown is a go-go legend in Washington, D.C. So to get the opportunity to do
go-go is big there.
Is dope. So those were 2 opportunities, if you would, that made me feel like, okay, cool. But again, when it comes to opportunities, I don't ever really feel like there's one where it's like, I'm there. Like, I don't ever really feel like that. I look at opportunities for what I can give them versus what I can gain. Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because I just told my mentee this morning, I said, you can't love without giving, and you can't give without loving. And that's always been one of my principles. Like, everything I do throughout life, somebody going to say I gave them something. Yeah. Like, that's just my philosophy. Like, if you met me, they gonna say, oh, she gave me something. Yeah. Whether it was monetary, whether it was a word, whether it was encouragement, that's what I live by. So I think that's what keeps you blessed and keep you grounded, when you're able to have that heart posture to say, I want to be able to give. Like that's where, you know, you get your reciprocity, where you sowing seeds into people's lives, you know, by that. So I think, and you talking to, I mean, I feel your anointing like coming from my shoulder, Chuck. So I feel like you a man of God, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I feel the fire coming like on the left side.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So were you raised in the church? Did you like grow up in the church? Were you like a pew pastor? Like where you were a kid? Like how did that happen?
I definitely was not a pew pastor.
Okay.
However, my mother was she was real big in the church. Shout out to my mother. She
shout out to mom.
Man, my mom's amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like I try to give.
And you just meant that just now.
Right? Yeah, that's my girl.
He had to step back, mom. He was like, you know what?
She
is amazing.
So here's the cool thing about me and my mother. Our birthday is actually the same day.
Really? She a Leo too?
She is. All of it too. All of it.
Shout out to mom.
You know, I'll be
me
honest
and her gonna get along too.
The only beef I got with the doctor was that he didn't be let me get my own day. But
you know what?
I counted it as a joy to be born on the same day as her.
That's
cute. But speaking of my mom, like she was big in the church. And even when I didn't understand it, like she always tried her best to point us to the word in some ways. And so even when we were going to the left, she would always do her best to point us back to what we supposed to be doing. And so she always tell me all the time, you know, son, you train up a child in the way he should go. And when he's old, he should not depart. And so now as I'm growing older, I haven't departed. Yeah. You know, it might not look the same as it did before, because I've had to grow and find my own way. But I definitely think that those seeds were planted.
Absolutely.
You know, I've been blessed because I think that I've had mentors along the journey. Like, you know, you got some people that's like, man, I'm way far.
Right.
Like as I look back over my life, like I think that I've been blessed at every step to not venture like too far.
Right. Like, to the left where you can't come back. There. Yeah.
If I went left, it was like an OG right there. Like, you know, that ain't really you.
Right.
Like I can recall in elementary school, I hollered at this drug dealer and he was showing me how he stashed crack. And
he was ask me why. He gave you a lesson
elementary school how to stash crack.
What grade was you in? Was you at
too young to be knowing how to stash crack? That grade. And I remember, man, he showed me that. But here's the cool thing, like when God got something different for you, like he showed me that, you know, did what he did. But after showing me that, he said, but bro, that ain't gonna be your path.
Oh.
Like you gonna do something different. Like you ain't gotta do this. And I'm a young kid at the time, and I'm talking to this drug dealer. I'm like, man, that's job. I'm thinking, I'm fascinated. I'm like, that's dope.
Right, you about to stand.
So if the police run up on you right now, you good. He's like, that ain't gonna be your journey, bro. And I don't know what he's up to now, but it's just like those little moments. Yeah,
that you knew God was like right there in your midst.
Yeah.
I feel like that too. Like even when I tried to like veer, and granted, I left home. Y'all know I left home when I was 16. You know, that's no news to nobody. I started selling drugs and I wasn't teaching people how to stash crack or nothing. Wow. But I was ministering while I was selling drugs. Like, can you imagine that? Like, I was the drug dealer. I had this one client where she went to go buy drugs from me. And I'm telling her, I said, you shouldn't be doing this. Mind you, I don't know what drug dealer going to talk themselves out of a sale.
Wow.
But
no, I don't know none.
So I don't know. I told her, I was like, you need to clean yourself up. I was like, this is not cool. You got kids, you got this going on, and so on and so forth. And she received the message. I'm pretty sure she still was smoking crack after that. But it was the fact that I wasn't even willing to sell her the drugs because I wasn't a hand-to-hander, no way.
Right.
So I ended up, one of the guys who was working for me at the time, he couldn't serve the community at that particular time. Wow. So I had to take over. Wow. And I was giving her, I said, you should not be using this drugs.
Wow.
And she just was looking at me like her face was, you know, you could tell when somebody receiving the word, but she also still wanted to be high. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But it's just, God always had those kind of special experiences with me where I felt like he had his hand on me.
Yeah.
No matter where I was, no matter how dangerous the situations, I've like seen people die in front of my face.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like no matter how crazy the situation was, he protected me some kind of way. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful that man even, that you can remember. You see how pivotal that was, where you like, I was in elementary school, but I remember that message.
I remember it.
Yeah, that was the message that you got, that, you know, it wasn't going to be you and it wasn't for you. So I'm just grateful that, you know, you're here in this place in Christ, that, you know, you're being able to touch people, you know, in such a way that they're able to perform at a high level. Like the stars that you just named, Jacqueline Carr, I remember when she came out with The Olive has, you know, 3 stages for its oil to flow. Okay. It has the shaking, the beating, and the pressing. Okay. And when she came out, I was just like, this little girl finna be something. And then here we are. Look at how much she's grown. I'm just so, you know, fascinated by how we take our dreams and just spin it into gold, like what you've done. So just moving forward, I see you got a ring on your finger. And I'm nosy. So you married?
Yeah, definitely married. Big married. And you big nosy, but we good. We good. Man.
Listen, because we talk about relationships on this podcast.
Let's do it.
I'm telling you, we talk about relationships. I came out with a relationship how-to guide. He could be faithful. So everybody knows I always ask people questions because it's a best-selling book. So I want to know, how long you and your wife been married?
Oh, so y'all see that pause? That pause is because you're supposed to know that, like, right off. So this year make 6 years.
Oh, see, that's because it's been a minute. I was about to say, if it's been 6 months, I'm gonna be like, Neil, you don't remember?
You gotta understand, like, soon if they ain't get that answer right, it's consequences behind the wrong answer.
It's been 6
Please
years.
Know that. Yeah, 6 years.
It's been 6. Shout out to your wife.
Shout out to my amazing wife.
Yes.
I couldn't sit here if she wasn't who she was.
I know that's right. Yeah. See, every guest every man that we bring on this show, y'all, do you see how hyped they be to talk about their wives? Do you see?
Yeah.
This is like such a blessing. So I want to ask you a question. What did your wife do, like, 6 years ago that made you, or did you even know before 6 years ago that she was going to be pivotal in your life and be able, like, the one that changed everything for you?
So for me, I see how quick I can answer that. So 2 things. So I always desired to be married. Because, you know, when I got saved, like, the people that I was around, like, everybody was married and they made marriage look so cool.
Right.
And so for me, like, I always had this desire to, you know, want to have one woman that I could love and die with and build a family with. And so for me, as it pertains to my wife, like, to be honest, like, when you're in the music space and when you're in that, like, entertainment space, you just want to be with somebody who don't really care about that. And with me, or when it comes to my wife, the blessing for me is that she made me comfortable just being me. And so I didn't have to, when I was around her, I didn't have to be the guy she saw on the stage. Right. I didn't have to be the guy that, you know, she might have saw even now, like, working with these different people. Like, she don't really care about that. Like, that's cool. But she loved me for me.
Is she in the industry too? Like,
she is. Like, she's actually a photographer. She's a creative director. Like, she's amazing. A lot of the amazing stuff y'all gonna see throughout this presentation is her. I don't really be doing the social media thing and pictures and all that. Like, that's really, like, her thing. And you know, everything that I might have wanted to do, whether it was video vlogs and encouraging people, like, when y'all see that stuff on my Instagram, like, that's her behind the camera. That's her on the lighting. That's her on the you know what they call this? The decor behind it. That's all her.
Look, shout out to the wife.
You know, but she's amazing. And you know, for me, like, she just made me comfortable just being me. Yeah. And then we also, you know, we shared a lot of similarities. Okay. I learned years after we were together, like, that her family and my family grew up like 2 houses from each other in the same neighborhood. My father shared stories with me about her family. Her grandmother will share stories with me about my father. And so for me, it's a full circle moment, man. But she's amazing.
But did it make it easier because she was kind of like understanding, because she's a photographer and, like, you know, in the industry in some capacity? Did it make it easier for you guys to gel? Like, do you think it would have lasted with somebody who was not in the industry, or maybe, like, at a traditional 9-to-5 job, or, you know, that structure that you don't really have at that particular time?
You know, I think that's a good question. I don't know. Like, we've had that dialogue before. Like, I don't think so. I think that, I think that it take a certain type of person to stand beside a certain type of person. It's going to take a specific, special type of man to stand beside someone like yourself.
Yeah.
Who got all of these different things going, because when you get into the entertainment space or in the entrepreneur field in general, like you got to have somebody who can understand how you think.
Yeah.
And even if they don't all the way get it right away, like at a certain point, growth got to kick in to where they catch up. And so even now, like in first transitioning to Atlanta, she didn't all the way get it. Because I was just like, hey man, God's saying do this. And she was just like, look, all right.
And when God say,
you know what I'm saying?
Y'all know when God say you got to go.
But it was hard because I was in one breath like God say, and then in another breath I'm scared.
Right.
And
look, I don't know if God
like,
said it
like
there.
She looked at me one day after going back and forth several times, and she said, Negro, if that's the direction that we're going, just lead.
Ooh.
That's what she's out. And that line changed my life. And she said, if that's the direction we're going, just lead.
Ooh.
And because of those words, I just went for it. Ooh. And I literally started. I'll never forget it.
His wife made me do like that.
Yeah, like, I mean, literally, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you if it wasn't for them words.
Yeah.
Because I was scared. Like, I was trying to make it all make sense. And, well, if I got this much saved, and if I got this. And then I heard Stephen Furtick say, you don't need full details to be obedient.
Ooh.
And then I said, all right.
Y'all getting that?
Time to go.
I think what you just said about what she said was most women hate the word submission. How you just said, don't matter where we going, just lead. That was strength under subjection. What she just did was she realized that she had all the power in the world to empower you to go.
Absolutely.
And she put that underneath subjection. That's all submission is. So I think in totality, to me, that's why you married her.
Yeah.
Because she sounds like a submissive woman. And not saying docile. I'm talking about understanding, putting her strength underneath subjection.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like she could go from 0 to 100 real quick.
She done turned Drake on. See, I done made you holy now. He done said you can turn 0 to 100 real quick.
But she knows, okay, kind of like when to tone it down. And that for me, like, helps. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's certain qualities about her. It's her gentleness. It's the way that she can smile. Like, as I was preparing for this, I was like, what you think about this? What you think about this? And she was like, well, do this. And then I had all this stuff I needed. And what I was going to send ain't look nothing like what she chose. Yeah. And so everything y'all got is what she picked.
Is what she picked
so for the record.
Right.
But yeah, man, she's amazing. Like,
that's what's up. I'm glad. So me, I feel like I want to know, and I know you have worked with so many people in the industry. We have our quals, our, trials, tribulations, stuff that go good, stuff that goes bad. Like, what was like the highlight or the most hardest or pivotal moment of like your career? Like, where did that happen for you?
The hardest, most pivotal moment of my career?
Yeah.
Is moving to Atlanta. Like, I'm from DC. Like, before I left DC, I was working for MGM Resorts. Okay. Collectively, I think me and my wife were doing anywhere between $130,000, $150,000 a year.
Oh, that's great money.
It was great. So what do you do when God say go this way? Of course, I was scared. I came to Atlanta with enough money to move into my apartment. Everything I owned was in a U-Haul trailer on the back of my car. The pivotal moment, I would say, is learning to embrace loss. Because, when you follow God, like, you think it's gonna be cool, like, he gonna be straight. But then you go through what I call what was referred to as the stripping. So what happens when you start losing stuff? You know what I'm saying? And you can barely like make ends meet. But then you still gotta hold on to what God said. Yeah. Like, I can remember the first church service I ever went to. I remember when I got here and I was sitting in the back and I was bawling, crying, like weeping. And I remember looking over at my wife and I said, I know God sent us here. And and so the pivotal change for me was growing to understand, like, all right, God sent us here, right? Mm-hmm. And having to accept that it ain't gonna look like anything I've ever seen. And so I thought just because, oh man, God sent us here, everything gonna be cool, provision gonna be there. It don't work that way.
Yeah.
Like if he just sent you somewhere and just gave you the keys, like you wouldn't have the character to handle it.
Yeah.
And people forget that God care more about your character than your craft. So all the cool stuff you can do, like that's dope. Yeah. But what happens when the lights go off? What happens when the mics go away? Like, who are you at home? Like those things matter. And those moments are perfected in those moments where you don't have it, when you try and figure it out, when they might put an eviction notice on your door. Mm-hmm. Those moments are perfected. Those. So the pivotal moment for me was like moving. Yeah. Because I remember going back and forth and just being unsure. Like I didn't know if I was hearing God. Like I didn't know. Yeah. And but to get here and to see what my life has become, like I keep saying it because like really coming from Southeast DC, like it ain't too many guys that I grew up with that can say, man, I done been in the rooms with the ETs of the world. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like people that y'all see on Instagram every day, like I can hit their phones, and I don't say that to like boast.
No, but that's like, that's a big deal.
But I say it humbly because what coming to Atlanta showed me was that there's a place for you just as you are. Mm-hmm. You don't have to try to compromise. You don't have to try to be something or someone that you're not. Mm-hmm. You could be exactly who you are. Mm-hmm. And it's a place for you. Mm-hmm. And people are prepared to receive you as you are. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Like you, even when you speak, I feel like it's a special anointing on you already. Like God is just moving in your life, especially in terms of growth and development in this next phase of your life. Like what, when we get to new phases and new levels, it has to be lessons, that, like you said, like the hardships and things and trials and tribulations that you have experienced that makes you better, that gives you that triumphant victory after you have experienced, so much. Like, were there any times like during your career where you just had the roughest experience and it's like, it has to be some sort of memoir to be produced from this. It has to be some sort of triumphant victory from this moment. Like just tell us a time about like where that you felt that exposure.
Man, that's, to be honest, like I'm thinking about it and I'm like, dang, like were there ever like, it's been so many of those moments, right? And but as you were speaking, the one moment that comes to mind is I remember like I was standing in my kitchen and in this field, like, our phones it's pivotal to what we do. Mm-hmm. Like, people can't call you, like it's a big deal. And I remember standing in my kitchen and I was out of it, man. Like I had no money. Like I had just paid rent. I had just enough to pay rent, and everything else was off. Like I mean, the lights was cool. Like I think I might have had internet. Nah, internet was off at the time. But I had my phone, and I had my roof, and the phones had gotten turned off. I think the phone bill was like $800, and I called T-Mobile. Well, I ain't gonna, let me be real. Like I'm gonna just let's take it off for a second. Keep it real. I was standing in the kitchen, in my kitchen at the time, and I just took shots. I don't even remember what I was doing. I was taking shots. And I was taking shots and I was crying. I take another shot, keep crying. And I was like, all right, God, I don't know what to do. Like, I ain't got no money. Like I need my phone. And I remember calling T-Mobile with an $800 balance. I was like, yo, I ain't got no money. My phone is essential to what I do. And they were like, the guy was like, hey, let me come back to the phone. And next thing I knew, I just started getting all these messages. Mind you, phones are off. But he's like, let me put you on hold. I started getting all these messages. And he comes back and he says, listen, man, your balance has been fully forgiven. And I was like, huh? And then he explained to me like, yo, like we don't normally do this, but we gonna set you up on this like deferred payment schedule. Like we gonna break your bill down over like the next 8 months. But for right now, for like the next 2 months, you ain't gonna owe no money.
Wow.
Now the reason I think that is important is because I wasn't in my kitchen like praying, Like, hey God, what should I, like, I was in my kitchen crying, taking shots, looking for an answer. And in that, God felt it necessary to speak to me, even through that moment, to be like, go this way.
Yeah.
And that was one of those moments where I had to be reminded, and I try to remind people as well, to be open to the ways that God speak. Because a lot of times we be looking for like this audible voice, but it might be, you might look down at the flower that's on your shoe. See that plug?
Yeah.
You might look down at the flower that's on your shoe, and you get a revelation through that. But you could be looking for the audible voice.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it just could come in the form, you just gotta be open, man. And it's just, can you imagine owing some money and you ain't got nothing to your name?
Oh yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
And it's just like, you don't even know how you going, and in some kind of way, it's like it's just out of nowhere.